I was thinking, we all know that God is with us, but what about the fact that we know that when Jesus was on the cross, God abandoned him? We know that while Jesus was hanging on the cross, he said, my God, why have you forsaken me?" We know that. But do we? Is that what happened? You know, the theologians over the years reading that text have told us that Jesus became sin on the cross, and therefore God had to turn his face away from him. But the Bible doesn't say that. In 2 Corinthians chapter 5, verse 22, it says, God made him who knew no sin to become sin for us, so that we might become the righteousness of God. But did Jesus ontologically become sin? I mean, did he, in his very being, turn into sin? No, that's not what it's saying. What it's saying is that Jesus became a sin offering for us on the cross. He didn't turn into sin. He simply took the place of sin so that God might make us righteous. And so Jesus was a sin offering, but he didn't turn into sin. And likewise, some people would quote Habakkuk chapter 2, where it says, "Your eyes are too pure to look upon sin." But in the next phrase, he accuses God of looking on sinners. So why do you do this since you're too pure to look on sin? It doesn't mean that that God had to turn his face away from Jesus. I know that there's a lot of songs that say that God turned his face away from Jesus, but the Bible just doesn't say that. As a matter of fact, when Jesus said, my God, why have you forsaken me?" he quoted the Bible. He quoted Psalm 22. What was that about? When he said, my God, why have you forsaken me? Why are you so far from the words of my groaning?" The reason Jesus said that was that while he was on the cross, he was praying through the Psalms. That's what any righteous Jew would have done. And Jesus was a rabbi. He knew the Psalms by heart. And so as he hung on the cross in great agony, in tremendous suffering, certainly feeling alone, certainly feeling abandoned, he is praying this Psalm 22, much like you would pray Psalm 23. "The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want." But Jesus was praying the one before that. "My God, why have you forsaken me?" And as you follow the words of that Psalm of lament, you will see the very thoughts and words that were in Jesus' mind as he hung upon the cross. In that prophetic psalm, you'll see the very action around the cross happening prophetically in the psalm. The men gambling for Jesus' clothing, his mouth drying up like a potsherd. That's where he said on the cross, "I am thirsty." It talks about being in his mother's arms, in his mother's womb. That's where he turned to John and said, "This is your mother." As a matter of fact, looking at that psalm, we can tell exactly what Jesus was thinking. And the psalm comes around to this ringing declaration of faith. "You have not scorned the suffering of your afflicted one. You have not turned your face away." Jesus declares from the cross that God did not turn his face away from him. God did not abandon Jesus on the cross. As you continue praying through the Psalms, if you go and read through them, you'll see that Jesus would have gone from Psalm 22 to Psalm 23. "The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want." He would have continued to pray out of his agony these words of ringing faith in Psalm 23 and 24 and 25, 26. You can look right into the mind of Jesus as he prays through these Psalms until finally he gets to Psalm 31, in which he says, "Into your hands I commend my spirit." Jesus on the cross knew that God was with him, that God had not turned his face away from him. Despite his feelings, despite the loneliness, despite the agony, he knew that God was with him, that God had not forsaken him. As a matter of fact, that God had accepted him as a perfect sacrifice for the sin of humanity. In the midst of your greatest hour of trial, in the worst moments you will ever spend in your life, you should know that no matter what it feels like, God is with you.